Welcome to Ag Infotech LLC's online video series. My name is Tim Norris and I'm founder and CEO of Ag Infotech LLC. We want to take this opportunity to provide a more in-depth look at the planning and training products and services that we offer. Again, none of these are possible without the great crew that we have at Ag Infotech. Ag Infotech describes the precision ag cycle as a wheel, and what we want to focus on right now is the planning and training section of that wheel. So we're talking about planning solutions. One of the things that we like our crew to do is have our sales staff meet with the grower and analyze their farming operation and try to identify potential areas that could be improved with our solutions. We then deliver a plan back that's specifically for the grower on how we should best proceed. We also do fertility prescriptions. Using the precision soil sampling data and the yield data, we can customize variable rate lime, phosphate, and potassium prescriptions. We also focus a lot on variable rate seed prescriptions. We've kind of came up with a new way, and I think kind of a unique way, to create seeding prescriptions that I feel is correct and gives us the result that makes good agronomic sense. It uses previous yield history, looks at the consistency of the yield data, it uses the soil type, and I feel, most importantly, it uses the seed supplier's recommendations. So this new seeding prescription methodology, we want to use as many years of corn yield history that we can. We then normalize that yield data, which I will explain in a little bit, and we create 3 different management zones and classify them as above average. We give that a weighting of 4, average we give a weighting of 2, and below average we give a weighting of 0. We run a normalized yield by soil type report, and we classify each soil type by above average. We give that soil type a 2, and average we give it a 1, and a below average we give a 0. We then add those 2 together, and basically we end up with a weighting that gives yield twice the weighting of that of soil type. We turn that into areas of the field that are now above average, average, and below average. We then look at the CV of the yield, and I will explain that CV term a little later. But basically that CV tells us if the yield is consistent. Either it's consistently good or it's consistently bad. If the yield is consistently good or consistently bad, we don't change the map. But if the yield is inconsistent, so it's high one year and low the next, then we make that section of the map average. We then look at the most important part of the equation, and that is input from our seed supplier. The grower is basically given a list of their fields and their predominant soil types. The seed matches up varieties with the fields and says where they want what varieties planted. We then ask the seedman to give us a population range for each variety. We get this list back saying here are the varieties that we want planted and the fields that are suited for these varieties, along with the population range for each variety. Let's take a look at the results. So this is a field here that we've actually ran this on. This is for 2V717 SXRA variety. The population range that the seeds person said that we needed to plant this variety at was between 28,000 and 32,000. So the red is going to be planted at 28,000 seeds per acre, the yellow is 30,000 seeds per acre, and the green is 32,000 seeds per acre. Now this is another variety for the same field. This is 6077 AM corn variety. So the population range that the seedsman wanted this variety planted at was between 30 and 36,000. This is more of a racehorse type variety. So the red areas are going to be planted at 30,000, the yellow areas are going to be planted at 32, the light green at 34,000, and the dark green at 36,000. We feel this is very important that we get that seedsman's recommendation because we don't want to have a blank map out there and overpopulate a works type variety and then have it fall on its face. So if we take the transparency down, you can kind of see that the low areas of the field are the areas that are going to be planted at the highest populations. We can go ahead and take that completely off, and you can see what the bare soils image looks like. And we'll put the recommendation back, and again you can see the recommendation. So we really feel like this is doing a very good job of coming up with a nice way to come up with a seeding prescription. We want to take a look at the field beside it. We thought, well, let's see if this prescription will actually work and look identical on the field beside. So we ran that same equation and prescription on the field right beside it, and we were very pleased with the results that we've had. So I wanted to talk about a couple of the terms that I had mentioned. One is normalized data. What is it, and when would you use it? So this is an example of one of the fields that I farm. The green areas are 222 bushels and above. The red areas are 86 bushels and above. And if you'll notice, there's just a complete line right there where there's a gravel ridge. Normalizing the data is basically taking the average of that field, which was somewhere around 180 bushel per acre in 2012, and bringing that down to where the average is actually 100. So what we do is we take that and get our average to 100. So now the yellow areas are 100, the red areas are 60% or less, and the green areas are 140% or better. So with this process, it allows us to take a year where the corn yielded 180, and to take a year where the corn yielded 220, and take a year where the corn yielded 140, and look at them all comparatively. So we take every single yield year and make those averages 100. We can then layer those on top of each other and say consistently over the last 4 years this area of the field has yielded 80% of average. This area of the field has yielded 120% of average. So no matter what the yield was, we know how each area of the field yielded comparatively. Another term that I had mentioned was the CV of the yield, and I want to kind of talk why this is important. So we're going to take a look at that field. This is 2010's corn yield. This year the average was around 210 bushels per acre for this field. The red areas were 147. The dark green areas were 257 and above. Again, you can see that line up there between the green and the red. What that is a gravel ridge, and that tends to dry out in a dry year. Or even 2010 wasn't all that dry, but we still were 100 bushels difference within about 100 feet of each other. So we take a look at the soybeans in 2011. You can see that same type of trend there. Take a look at 2012, the corn yield. Same type of trend. That gravel ridge shows up every single year. 2012 was actually a pretty dry year for us. The corn only yielded around 182 or 183 bushel per acre that year. But then we get to 2013. That trend is not there. The best part of the field is that gravel ridge. Well, 2013 was an extremely wet year for us. Around the July 4th weekend, we had a 5-inch rain. The river came up and flooded most of that lower area. So we really wouldn't want to use this yield data in coming up with management zones. So that CV, with this map added in, that CV would be inconsistent. It would show that typically this one area up here in the gravel ridge would have always been low, and then it's the highest. So what we would do is we would say we don't want to use that, and we would take that out of the equation. So we went fairly in-depth in this video about how we create a variable rate seeding prescription. I feel we offer one of the best ways out there using sound, localized agronomics to create these prescriptions. We can do very similar things with your fertility prescriptions, but for these to work, it all starts with good data and planning. We also offer training sessions on how to operate our displays and software. Most of these training sessions are held at our training facility, which will accommodate 16 people and 16 displays. We have power cords and RAM mounts, so all you have to do is bring your display in and we can power it up and you can follow along. For more information, visit our website at www.aginfotech.net or give us a call at 740-507-9999. 2503.